if you look at 2021 and beyond, we're in the age of the informed consumer. And anybody that wants to deny that is fundamentally going to be left behind. There's no question about it. And so it doesn't matter the way you used to do it, the way your daddy or mommy did it. The only thing that matters is, where's the marketplace headed? And are we willing to get in front of the marketplace? That's the essence of They Ask You Answer. And that's why we should talk about these things. And besides, again, I got to stress, if you don't talk about it, they're going to learn it. They're going to learn it from somebody else. So it may as well be you.
Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Just sit back, relax, and learn from the leaders of today. It's a journey. Each one is different, unique, inspiring. Let's get started. This episode is powered by J Ventures, a community-driven VC fund in Silicon Valley, in partnership with Lomitech, and sponsored by Homeward Ventures, Hippo Insurance, Upwest, Hillel at Stanford, Leap, and Birthright Excel. Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Today I'm joined by Marcus Sheridan, co-owner and partner of Impact. Marcus is a highly sought-after international keynote speaker known for his unique ability to excite, engage, and motivate audiences. He is co-owner and partner at Impact, one of the most successful digital sales and marketing agencies in the country, and author of They Ask You Answer, once touted by Mashable as the #1 marketing book, dubbed a web marketing guru by the New York Times, and in 2017, named one of 20 speakers you don't want to miss by Forbes. His philosophy has helped countless marketing and sales teams around the world connect with buyers online and achieve astounding revenue growth. In fact, Marcus saved his swimming pool company, River Pools and Spas, from the economic collapse of 2008 and adapted not only to stay afloat, but to thrive. All right, Marcus Sheridan, welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. How are you?
Michael, great to be here. I got a feeling we're going to have a great conversation.
I was just about to say the same thing. We're already on the same page here. Where are you calling from?
Virginia today.
Okay.
Yeah, Virginia. But you never know where it's going to be. And because I travel for speaking full time,
Right.
Except during pandemics, at which point I just sit on Zoom calls all day long, right? But I'm happy that we're moving past that and that the world is opening back up.
Definitely. Okay, so next episode is going to be in person. I'll catch you somewhere in the world. But for now, we'll do it this way. You're a highly sought after international keynote speaker. You're also part of co-owner and partner at Impact, which you'll tell me very, very soon, talking about digital sales and marketing agencies. You're the author of They Ask You Answer, touted by Mashable as #1 marketing book, a lot of other amazing quotes. And so obviously we're going to be talking about today digital sales and marketing, which I feel is just a little bit relevant to 2021 and where we are with society, just a tiny bit. So Marcus, before we get to that, walk me a little bit through your journey and what are the moments that led you to understand that this is really where your passion lies?
Well, for me, it all started right out of college. I thought I was going to work near DC, and I didn't like the area. And so I came back home to the country where I live in Virginia. My two buddies had just started a swimming pool company. And they said, "Hey, do you want to work in the swimming pool company?" And I said, "Well, until I find out what I'm going to do with my life, yeah, sure." And so I jumped in with them, and 6 months later they said, "Hey, would you be a partner in this business?" And so nobody ever, grows up saying, "I want to be a pool guy," but I became a pool guy essentially at age 22. And, we fought to grow the business, but by 2008, when the market collapsed, we were in big trouble, and I thought we were going to have to file bankruptcy. And that's when I started to really learn about the internet, learn about things like, content marketing, social media, blogging, stuff that we've heard many times by this point. And, what I heard in my simple pool guy mind was, Marcus, if you just obsess over your customers' questions and you're willing to address them on your website, you just might save your business. And so I said, well, shoot, that's one thing I can do. I can address my customers' questions. I can do it well. I teach pretty well. So that's what we're going to do. And I brainstormed all the questions I'd received over the years, hundreds of questions. And then I proceeded to answer them one by one on my website through articles and videos over the next couple of years. And we became the most trafficked swimming pool website in the world. And it was amazing what was happening. And so I said, you know what, other people should know about what I'm doing here. Is this this works. And so I started a blog that was separate, where I just started talking about what I was doing with my business. And that led to companies reaching out saying, hey, can you teach us how to do that? And that led to speaking engagements. That eventually led to me writing the book, which is They Ask You Answer. And now They Ask You Answer has been embraced by companies all over the world. And I have an agency and I speak, and that's the quick journey. But I tell you what, it all started, Michael, with this mindset of, what does my customer want? Well, they want me to answer their questions. Am I willing to do it? Yeah, I'm willing to do it. That's really where it started.
So it sounds very, it sounds trivial. Somebody's asking, customers are asking
That's
questions.
right.
Obviously as a seller, you want to answer them. Why is this, why is this not trivial?
Yeah, so it's just great. In principle, it's very trivial. In practice, it's not. And so why is this? Well, if you talk to most companies and you say, do you want to be the voice of trust in your space? They'll say, yeah, I'd like to be seen as the voice of trust. But when it comes down to it, most aren't willing to pay the price. And what is the price? Starts with the obsessive listening of your customers, understanding their issues, worries, concerns, fears, etc. And then going beyond that, addressing those very specific things that they want to know. And in fact, in the book, Michael, we talk about 5 subjects that buyers are obsessed with, that they want to know. You and me, as consumers, buyers, we always research. Businesses, though, they don't want to talk about these 5 things. And I'll tell you the 5. As buyers, we're obsessed with how much does it cost. We want to know all about cost, price, rates, etc. As buyers, we're obsessed with what are the problems with it, or the negatives, or the issues, or the drawbacks, right? When we are researching something, when we want to buy something, we want to know how could it blow up in our face, right? What could go wrong? So, second one's problems. As buyers, we're obsessed with comparisons. We love to compare stuff online, dude. I mean,
Oh,
we are
yeah.
constantly comparing things online. As buyers, we're obsessed with reviews. That's number 4. And number 5, we're obsessed with best. Think about all the times you've gone online and searched for best such and such. So we've got cost, problems, comparisons, reviews, and best. That literally runs the economy in terms of the way buyers like you and I research, yet businesses don't like to talk about these things, Michael, especially if they're service-based businesses, B2B, manufacturers, all that stuff. And now all of a sudden we have a problem of trust because they're not addressing what everybody wants to know.
And why don't they like to talk about this stuff?
I like to compare it with the ostrich with its head in the sand. It thinks the problem's going to go away, but it doesn't ever go away, right? When it comes to this digital world that we're now in, Michael, ignorance is not bliss. And there was a time when companies didn't have to talk about this because the buyer just couldn't get it immediately elsewhere. But now they can. And, one of the reasons why we say we don't do these things, let's just take cost and price, for example, Michael. There's 3 main reasons why companies don't talk about cost and price on their website. First reason is they say, well, every job is different, and so therefore it depends. Yeah, that's really easy to talk about, actually, because you can talk about why it's more expensive. In other words, what drives cost up? What keeps cost down? Why are some companies expensive? Why are some companies cheap? You really get to teach the marketplace what defines value proposition. But the thing about that one is, if you don't teach it, who will? Somebody else. And ignorance is what commoditizes a product or a service. Knowledge is what decommoditizes. So the first reason why we don't like to talk about cost and price is because we say it depends. The second reason is we say, well, we tend to be more expensive, and if we're more expensive, we might scare them away, which is totally stupid, because the thing that actually scares us away as buyers is when we're on a website, we're researching something, and we cannot find information on it. And the quickest way to understand this is, let's say somebody said to you, hey, Michael, have you heard about such and such restaurant? You're like, oh, no, I haven't. And they're like, you got to check it out. You got to go, bring a friend, bring a loved one, whatever. And you're like, okay, I'll check it out. And so you decide to go, but before you go online, you look at reviews. You're like, reviews seem okay, but you go to their website, you look at the menu like so many people do, and there's no pricing on the menu. Now, what's wild about this is in that moment, the majority of people do not go to that restaurant any longer. And it's not because they can't afford it. It's because the moment they leave it blank, they plant a seed of doubt on the menu. And when seeds of doubt exist, inertia occurs and we don't take action. We stop. So that's the second reason why we don't talk about cost and price, is because we're afraid we're going to scare them away when it's the opposite. What scares them away is ignorance.
Right.
And the third reason why we don't like to talk about cost and price is we say things like, well, our competitors will find out, which is totally ridiculous, because if you go to anybody that's been in the industry for any period of time and you say, do you have a pretty good sense as to what your competitors charge? They're going to say, yes, of course I do. And so if you have a good sense as to what your competitors charge, it means they have a great sense as to what you charge. This is the big secret. Non-secret, everybody acts like nobody knows what everybody's charging, when in reality, everybody does. You see, this is the stuff that we see all the time. Yet if you take most, let's say, service-based B2B businesses, Michael, 90% to this day don't talk about cost and price on their website. It's crazy.
Amazing. Tangibly, when you're talking to organizations, when you're working with other leaders of organizations thinking through this, do they get it once they understand this, or do you find that there is some reluctance to just wrap their mind around what's happening here?
There's resistance until I force them to look at the mirror and say, hey, what would you want as a buyer? Because this is the problem. You become a world-class marketer the moment you become incredibly self-aware as to your evolving behaviors online. But what's so wild, Michael, is that so many people don't even recognize how they themselves are changing every single day. What you expect. And so these same business owners and leaders that are pushing back on trends are the very ones responsible for the trends in the first place.
Right.
It's really wild. And so I've had a lot of success convincing businesses to do this. I've had entire industries talk a lot more about cost and price because, I've started, and I've been speaking now for about 10 years. I've really embedded myself in certain industries and revolutionized a lot of these industries, because the fact of the matter is that if you look at 2021 and beyond, we're in the age of the informed consumer. And anybody that wants to deny that is fundamentally going to be left behind. There's no question about it. And so it doesn't matter the way you used to do it, the way your daddy or mommy did it. The only thing that matters is, where's the marketplace headed? And are we willing to get in front of the marketplace? That's the essence of they ask, you answer. And that's why we should talk about these things. And besides, again, I got to stress, if you don't talk about it, they're going to learn it. They're going to learn it from somebody else. So it may as well be you.
I love the idea that we're in the era of the informed consumer. I think that's a really, really nice way of looking at where the market is heading. Now, for young entrepreneurs that are starting out their journey, starting companies, whether it be in tech, in service, in B2B, whatever it may be, how tangibly does a young CEO come in and nurture a culture that absorbs this type of behavior, that obsessively wants to answer the customer's questions, being over communicative and extra informative?
Well, let me tell you one way you don't do it. Is you don't say, hey, let's be great at content marketing, because that ain't going to move the needle. And unfortunately, that's what a lot of marketers say. And that's why it doesn't resonate. Marketers fight to get buy-in all day long, partly because leadership teams and sales can be hard-headed. Partly, though, because they themselves are terrible at explaining marketing in a way that resonates with sales and leadership. Mm-hmm. And so this is absolutely key. Now, there's also why, if you're a leader, you say to your organization, what's our vision? Our vision is, let's be the best teachers in the world. Let's obsess over our customers' questions. Let's become the voice of trust. That's our goal. Now, if you approach it that way, that was just a beautiful marketing strategy that I just suggested to you, but I didn't use marketing phrases or terms.
Right.
And that's when we talk about mission statements and vision and all that other stuff. That's the way you got to do it, because otherwise it doesn't land with your entire team. You've got to use shared language, not departmental language.
Right. And it sounds to me like this is also something that is not simply relevant to the marketers of the organization, right? You have the R&D departments, and you have the content and the marketing organizations. But this is something more in the culture that you have to instill in anybody that is working on a product that services other people, to both be cognizant of the flaws that we have with us that were coming in from the previous generations or the previous industries, but also as a way of thinking of how are we developing our products while answering those questions that the customers are asking, right?
I love that, because if you're doing product development, you've got to be willing to say, so if I had to pick this product apart, what would I hate about it? What would frustrate me about it? What would annoy me about it? What, if anything, could I change? And when you approach it that way, it's like, don't think about your buyer, think like your buyer. That is the key. And truly putting yourself in their shoes. Companies say they do this. No, they don't. They don't do this, because otherwise, like, let me give you a silly example. How many attorneys do we have in the world? Like millions. And how many of them address on their website what happens if you lose your case? None. None. Now, how many people are thinking, what happens if I lose my case? Every single one. But you
Right.
see any attorneys talking about this? No. See, that's ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense, because everybody's thinking the same thing. Again, ignorance is not bliss.
Right. And so with you're the co-owner and partner of Impact. How do you actually work with others to resolve these issues? Because besides the speaking engagements where you're going over the principles, here you actually have to go and drill down into the actual culture and the actual problems that an organization might have. What does that process look like from an outsider coming in?
I think the whole marketing agency model is totally screwed up and broken. And what I mean by that is, when I look ahead, the future of the internet and business success is not going to be decided by you outsourcing your content, your voice, the soul of your business. So my agency teaches companies how to own their content production, their video production, how to integrate sales and marketing together so that they're essentially one revenue team. And this model isn't easy for a lot of companies at first, but it is by far the most productive if you want to change an industry. And you see, at this point in my career, Michael, all I'm interested in is world-class case studies. I think just doing a campaign for somebody is so boring. What I want is to see someone, like a business, turn their industry on its head. And you don't do that by following the rules that everybody else has followed. You certainly don't do that by outsourcing all your content. Show me one company that became the voice of their industry by outsourcing all their content. I ain't never seen it. It doesn't exist. And so if you want to become the river pools of your space, you do like I did. You produce your own stuff because it's your voice. You're the subject matter expert. You leverage your team of subject matter experts, and you get it done that way. And that's how you tell a story. That's how you do it. But you don't do it by outsourcing. And so we're the anti-outsourcing agency. We teach you how and train you how to do these things. And it's a beautiful model. And it's, you want to talk about empowering, it's incredibly empowering.
It sounds like it, and it sounds like you get to do some pretty fun stuff and some pretty creative stuff in your day to day. Primarily, a lot of problem solving. That's really what it sounds like. Now, Marcus, thank you so much for joining me. I want to spend a few minutes also about you and who you are behind the digital sales and marketing expert. Take me back to your childhood before the pool guy. What really fascinated you as a kid growing up?
Well, I was really just a sports guy. I wasn't an academic. I think I had a grade point average of 2.3 in high school.
Wow.
And what I was, though, and I realized early on, I communicated better than most around me. So I was the captain of the football team. I was captain of the baseball team. I was captain of the wrestling team. And I wouldn't say I was a great athlete per se. I was fine. I mean, I was competitive, but I really knew how to rally the troops, if you will, right? And that carried over to my business life. And today, in fact, I spend probably about a third of my time teaching just transformative leadership communication skills in general. I think it's the greatest skill in the world, and it's the most underrated. It's not taught in schools. For the most part, it's not taught in universities. This is a tragedy. And it's something that I'm incredibly passionate about. And I'll tell you just a really quick story. People say, well, how did you know you had this thing? I knew I had this thing when one time I was done baseball practice and we were watching the girls softball practice, and they were finishing up, and they had their biggest game of the season the next day. And as they were just winding practice down, they were huddled up, and one of them looked at me, and I was standing, next to the fence with my fellow baseball players on the other team, and their captain said to me, "Hey, Marcus, why don't you come over here and get us inspired for tomorrow?" And so I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, sure." So I just, went over to the to this group of girls, and we got them fired up for the next day. But what stuck with me that night, Michael, was why did she ask me? Like, why did she ask me? And what I said to myself too was, well, she asked you, and that means something. And so you need to develop this. You need to take this and run with it. So that was the moment when I realized I was supposed to be a teacher, a communicator, a motivator, if you will. I just happened to need to have a story with it, and that story was that of a pool guy.
Amazing. I wish we could end it on this note, but I have two more questions that I really want to ask. But that was really an awesome story. What inspires you today, Marcus? As you go day by day, what really inspires you?
I'm most inspired today, frankly, by individual thinkers, people that can truly think for themselves. They're not swayed by what they see necessarily by the masses. They're not swayed by what they've seen done before. This applies to business, to personal, to professional, that they can truly look at something and say, you know what, that ain't right. Or, you know what, I don't think this should be the way. There's a better way. And then they act upon it. They do something about it. I think that's a beautiful skill. I think it's an underrated skill. I think we are teaching people not to think for themselves, and I think that's problematic. We need to promote free thinking. I think that's where discovery and beauty lies.
Amazing. And what are 3 words you would use to describe yourself?
Well, one is a Spanish word, which is animo, and I lived in Chile for a couple years, and the people there would say, "You have so much animo," and animo is like enthusiasm, but it is an infectious almost enthusiasm. So I would say that's number 1 for me. Number 2 would be teacher, just because I tend to explain things in ways that almost anybody could understand them, which is important to me. And the third one would probably be restless. I think I want to move. I want to be in motion. And I can't sit and watch a TV show. The idea of just sitting and watching a TV show is, I think, my greatest nightmare.
Well, something that we both share. Marcus, thank you so much. This was a true pleasure. I learned a lot, and I have a feeling that our paths will cross one day again. So thank you very much for everything, and stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you, Michael.